Hi there, I'm digital artist Aaron Rutten, and in this video we'll be taking a look at some of the custom brushes that I've made recently. I was kind of experimenting with some newer image hose nozzles that I made, and what I was going for was kind of a painterly effect. I wanted to be able to make a pine tree specifically in kind of an oil painting style, and I wanted to be able to do it really quickly without having to draw a million branches. And what I was going for is something like this, where I can make these really nice pine trees with something that looks kind of like a fan brush. And get this kind of effect. So it took a little experimentation, but I found something that worked. You can go the opposite direction and you can make other kinds of pine trees with the leaves that hang down. You could really use it for just about any kind of trees and different things. So it's a really nice brush. There are some other brushes that are similar, they're kind of painterly. So we'll just start from the top. The first one is Paint Break, which is kind of like what you get with a palette knife. Now I've also created a couple of new image hose brushes. These brushes are specifically for these kind of painterly style image hoses. And the first one is linear size P, angle D color, and it's just like the other brush, the other linear size P, angle D brush, except it adds color. And in Painter you have these two colors. You have your main color and you have your additional color. And with this brush, if you set your additional color, you can pick any color you want. And if I want this green color here for my paint, I can go ahead and do that. So I'll start painting. You can see that it's green. If I want to change my color, I have to make sure I'm changing my additional color by tapping on it. I can pick this vermilion. And you can see this is really nice, thick kind of paint texture. You'll want to use this primarily with the Paint Break brush to get kind of more of a paint break effect. And you can see we get something like this. This would work good for just painting, or you could use it as a overlay texture if you wanted to do just a texture over everything. It would work really well. Along with this brush and setting the color, you also have to play with the grain, because what the grain does is the grain controls how much color you're adding to the paint. And by default, all of these paints here are this neutral gray, and I did that to make them easier to tint. So by default, the brush kind of looks like this, and the more grain, or the less grain that you add, the more tint you add, or the more color you're adding here as your additional color. So if I set my grain to 0, now I'm getting full color. Now you probably don't want to use 0, you probably want there to be a little bit of grain so that you get some of this nice paint texture. You'll get more texture if you use a little bit more grain. So you'll have to find the magic setting for each brush to get it to work the way you want. We'll take a look at some of the other examples. This is dry dabs, and this is kind of if you had a dry paintbrush with bristles and you just kind of just tapped it down and just did a dab. There's these kind of different dabs that go in different directions. You just kind of tap with it, and you could also draw, and you could make shapes that look kind of like leaves and bushes and things. Again, you want to play with the grain to get some different settings here for this. You'll get different results. There's a leaf dabs, which I feel works a little bit better for leaves. So I'll pick a nice dark leaf color here and we'll try this. And you can see that I get some really nice leaf and tree effects. Now you might say that this looks a lot like the Impressionist brush, and it kind of does, but the Impressionist brush, I don't think it does such a good job. This kind of gives you more natural looking results, because when I painted these, I was aiming for these to not look so digital. I kind of want it to look like paint. In this case, that's kind of why I named these the painterly brushes. You can make some really nice bushes and things with that one. The fan dabs we already looked at, but I'll show you that again. You just kind of use varied pressure here, and you can get different size of tree, and you just kind of keep painting with it. Make your brush bigger if you have to. And there you go, you got a little pine tree there really easily. I mean, I can't think of an easier way to paint a pine tree than that. And if you want to add some shading to it, you can turn on Preserve Transparency and pick a color and just throw some nice shading over it there. Take a look at the dry sponge. Now, this is a lot like just the regular sponge, but again, it's a little more organic. Paint with it and see, it gives you kind of a dry texture. You could also tap with it if you want to. This works better with the paint break brush. So you can see if I tap, I get, you know, just kind of a nice sponge, but it's a bit more varied than the regular painter sponge is, so that's what I like about it. It gives me kind of a more of a random texture. And we'll look at the wet sponge. The wet sponge is just like the dry sponge, except it's a little more blurred so that it looks kind of more like it's wet paint rather than dry paint. So this would work really well if you want to just kind of stain things up or just add some texture to things. And again, you can play with the grain. You can also make the composite method a multiply composite method, and you can get some different results here that kind of would work like tinting. And there you go. So those are the brushes. I'll be attempting to create some more in the future, but for now this is what I got. If you're interested in learning more about these brushes and downloading them, you can go to my website, aaronrutten.com. If you found this information helpful, take a quick second to like this video and share it on YouTube, and that'll make it easier for other artists out there to find this information. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for my next video.